Hi there, ladies and gentlemen. Very good evening. Welcome back to the Advanced Research Methods session tonight, which is the final area of your research methodology. And I'm going to cover tonight, which is validity, reliability, objectivity, and the generalizability of your research. Now, when I'm calling it this way, you may be confused if you haven't heard of this before. What I mean here is the research you do is subject to 4 questions, because if I simplify this, if your research is not valid, if your research is not reliability enough or reliable enough, if your research hasn't been done with the right objectives, and if your research is lacking with this generalizability, that research is not worth it to read, right? So that is why we have to make this research a valid research, reliable research, and objectively done research, and it is generalizable. Let me take one example to exemplify one of those things. Let's take generalizability to understand what I'm trying to say. Right. So the meaning of generalizability is this: if you do a research for a society, you don't test every single one. An example would be, if you want to test if a vaccine is valid enough to inject that to the people to develop some immunity. It is not, you only test it for few people. And out of that testing, you may conclude, yes, this vaccine is okay. 99% of the people, they recovered or they developed immunity, so that this vaccine is okay, and we can give this vaccine to the people. Now, the generalizability is this: if you want to study this kind of the vaccines issue, it is impossible for you to study that to every single one in the population. In other words, every element in the population, it is impossible, because you have 7 billion people in the world. But you do that for a smaller number of people, that is what we call the sample. And you do that for every single one in the sample, that is what we call subject. So you do that test for every subject. And when you have done this, based on the research conclusion you get, it may be either this way or that way. It may be, yes, you can do this, it's a good vaccine, or it may be the vice versa, the opposite one as well. Whatever it is, you have to, or you should be able to generalize this message to the rest of the population. That is what it is. Let me explain that to you. If you take 100 people, out of 100 people, if you test it for only 10 people, based on the 10 people's statistics you collected, based on the decision you conclude, you draw from that analysis of the data you collected, you can generalize the message. If I do this for the rest of the 90 people, the same thing will happen. So out of 10 people, if 9 people have developed positive immunity, good, stronger immunity, we can generalize the message to the rest of the people, the rest of the 90 people. And if I do this for them, out of 90% of them will be the same case, will be developing the stronger immunity. This is what we mean generalizability. If I take another example, if you drink a curry, a spoon of curry from your curry pot to sample it, after you taste it, if the salt level is okay with you in the teaspoon, the spoon, you generalize the message. The rest of the curry is the same context in terms of the salt level and the taste. This is what generalizability is about. So if you do a research, the research should be a generalizable research. Otherwise, no point of doing that for a sample. You have to do that for the whole population. This is why a research should be generalizable. Now, people, they take insulin because the researchers have shown that if you take some insulin, you can put the blood sugar down. And this was done maybe in one of the African countries, or maybe this was done in Britain, or maybe in some other country. And that message has been generalized to the country you live as well. In India, the same case. In Sri Lanka, the same case. Because they say, We have done this in Britain, and that has reacted, that has worked this way. The same way it will work for Sri Lankans, Indians, Pakistanis as well. This is what generalizability is about. So the bigger the generalizability, the better the research is, because it can cover a big population. Okay, so this is what I'm calling the research is subject to 4 questions. One is generalizability. I have almost covered it. The next one is validity, reliability, and the objectivity. So let's see what it is about. Now, let me touch the first one, validity. Now, is your research valid? Is it valid enough to learn from, to study that, to apply that for my context? This is what it is about. Now, when I'm calling it validity, the validity is not only in the research methodology, not only in the research questionnaire. Is the research methodology valid? Is the research questionnaire valid? Is the literature valid? All of these things, are they valid? Let me explain this to you using an example that, you know, we all have A-level exams in most of the countries in Asia. And when you have these exams, these A-level exams that decides whether this is this candidate, this person is the right one to be admitted in the medical faculty or not, right? That the A-level result that decides you go to the faculty or you're out of the faculty. My question is, how many of you agree the A-levels is exactly deciding the doctors and the non-doctors? Do you think everyone inside the faculty they are doctors, and everyone out of the faculty, because the exam said you are the person get into the faculty, you are the person get out of the faculty? That is what the exam says. And my question is it, are you agreeing with it? Do you agree with these exams? Is the exam a valid tool to measure the doctors and the non-doctors, to measure the graduates and non-graduates? Is it correct? Do you agree with it? In my, according to myself, A-level is an exam. It is testing something, but it is not a valid test to test the doctors and non-doctors, the business graduates and the non-business graduates. Because let me take an example here. Do you think all the doctors in the faculty, they are all doctors? We can see stupids inside. And there are so many people, they missed out due to the exams, they're out of the faculty, and they could have been a good doctors as well. And these business graduates, if you look at them, you can see many good business graduates in the faculty, yes, and there are so many people, they don't know what it is. They don't even have an idea about what they're studying. They're also in the faculty to study business. And there are so many people, the exam cut them off. The exams denied them the access to the faculty. They are out of the faculty and they don't get an opportunity to study in the university. But they go to the market and do big businesses, and they become big business people. And that is what in fundamental, the people, they entered into the faculty, they study. And finally, what happened after 10 years, the exams, whoever they sent inside the faculty, they come out of the faculty with a degree, and they go and work for the person who lost the opportunity to enter into the business faculty. So this is why I'm contradicting. These A-levels are not measuring what it's supposed to measure. What it's supposed to measure. Okay, so my argument is A-level exams of not only the country you and I live in, most of the case, these exams, it is decided to test something, but is it valid? Is it valid? Is it testing what it's supposed to test? The answer is in most of the case, no. In some cases, yes. Right. So my message out of this statement is this: you have got a questionnaire that we learned in the past. You're going to use this questionnaire to measure certain things, to study whether this vaccine is going to be yes or no, whether this corona is going to go out of the world or not, whether this business is going to work or not, whether this revenue is going to grow or decline, whatever you want to study. You're going to collect some data using that questionnaire. That is what I mean, the exams. Now, is this questionnaire valid? Is it valid? Okay, now, if the questionnaire is valid, yes. If the questionnaire is not valid, then it's no. So this is where we have to be careful. Is the questionnaire we use to collect data to measure what we want to measure, is it valid? We have to test it. Okay, so this is the first question that you have to answer. To measure this, there are so many ways to measure. Let me tell you one example in here. If you use a test to recruit some sales staff, for your organization, you may use a test. Okay, so based on the test, whoever they scored higher marks on it, you may select them. And once you have selected them, you put them into your sales. Okay, now you can study the marks they had. Let's say one guy you selected got 75 marks, other guy got 85 marks, third guy got 95 marks, and you can measure how much sales they bring in, how much revenue they bring in. If you see a pattern like this, you can say the test is valid. If you don't see a pattern like this, the test is not valid. Okay, so you have to change your test. So the question you use, you may use this kind of tests to find out whether the questionnaire is valid. If the questionnaire is not valid, it is not measuring what it's supposed to measure, instead something else. So the conclusion you make, the conclusion you draw out of your analysis is going to be not valid. So it's going to be a wrong thing you're going to do. So this is how it works. Very simple process, by the way, to teach. But when you want to do this in real term, it is not easy as we told. But anyway, so that is what we call the validity. The next test is about the reliability. The reliability is this. If you use your research questionnaire, is that research questionnaire reliable? When I'm calling this, let me take an example to exemplify this. Now, it is the scale that you can weigh your body weight. So you are working on your body to put your body in shape. So you have this at home. So now what you do, you measure your weight in the morning at about 8 o'clock in the morning when you get up. The machine said 73 kilograms. Okay. So you got down immediately, 73 kilograms. Okay, it was last week, a week before it was 74. Now it's 1 kilo less, so it's okay. Right, now when you got down, then you just forgot what it was. So then you wanted to check it, and you immediately got onto the scale and you read 70. Okay, so after 1 minute or 1 second, you got 70. So you got down and you see 70 kilo, then you remember, oh, what is it? Last time it was 73, something like that, I remember. And it's 70 this time. So then you have a confusion, 2 different measurements. So that you go for the third time immediately after that, and it measured 75. So 73, first one, 70, second one, third one, 75 kilograms. Now you know this scale is measuring something absolutely. It says some weight in it, some reading in that, but you know this scale is not reliable. Not reliable. Okay, so this is what the reliability is about. Now let me make this into your research, this example. So now, do you use this kind of scales to measure your body weight if you are working on putting your body in the right shape? And my answer is no. I don't know how you're going to do. You never use this kind of machineries or gadgets or instruments to measure things if it is not reliable. Can you use this kind of scales or this kind of context to sell something, to buy something? No. So we don't use it. The same thing applies if you have a research, you have your questionnaire that measures something. Is it reliable? Now, if you give a question to someone in the morning, he gives you an answer. And if you give the same thing, same questionnaire to the same guy in the afternoon, he has to give you the same answer. If he gives the same answer, the questionnaire is or may be reliable, I would say. If they give a different answer, why is it? Same question, same person, morning one answer, evening different answer. So not reliable. Right. So this is what it is. So we need to make sure the research data collection instrument, in fact, in fact, it's the questionnaire, is reliable. And this reliability is not in fact connected to the questionnaire only. It is connected to the literature review, the factors we have, and the rest of the methodology all applies. But the main thing I'm talking tonight is about the reliability of your measuring tape, the measuring instrument. Okay, so we have to make sure that this is reliable. For this, there is one set of questionnaire to measure, to collect some data, different time intervals, maybe yesterday one, today one, tomorrow one, or today one, tomorrow one, day after one, or morning one, evening one, things like that. This is one of them, and you compare those answers. If you get some consistency in the answers they give you, it may be reliable. And you can use the same form for different people at the same time as well. That is another way of doing it. It is also possible. So we can collect data that way and compare. You give a questionnaire to me and you give a questionnaire to another person as well. And we can compare the context, the answers of them, and you can find out if it is reliably getting the data you wanted to analyze your problem. So this is what the reliability is about. Now, the next one is about the, right, let me tell you this here. So now I'm taking this archery thing. You know, you target your thing to shoot your archer. Use the archery. Now, if you reach your point here with your arrows, all of these things, this is what you really want. So this is where I'm calling it. This archer is reliable. Okay, because it is landing in the same area, reliable. Okay, so if you have a gun, if you target one thing, if that gun shoots randomly everywhere, reaches the target everywhere randomly, and that is not reliable. It is, that gun is, this time it reached something, and next time it reached something else, a different point. So it is unreliable. Okay, so we don't need that kind of gun or archer to do this game. So if that reaches here, that is reliable, and if it is reaching the area together, that is valid as well. Now, if you take this here, this is reliable but not valid, because it's reaching one point. Reliable, it is reaching one point together, so it's reliable. It's giving you the same result, but it is not reaching the point you wanted. It is not measuring what it's supposed to measure. It is not reaching what it's supposed to reach. That is why it is not valid. So if you use a archer to do your sport, it has to be valid, meaning it has to reach the place it has to reach. It's supposed to reach, valid. And it has to reach the place over and over. That is what the reliability is about. If you measure that 2-3 times in your scale, you have to get the consistent result. That is reliability. So if you use the questionnaire to measure your research, it has to be valid and reliable. The third thing, the third question we have to ask is about the objectivity. Now, when I'm talking about objectivity, reason why, otherwise the influence of the data collector, the researcher, on the research data collection document objectively. In other words, the data has to be collected using the instrument very independently from the researcher. Let me take an example to exemplify what I mean, because it's complicated to word it. Now look at this. This is a dancing competition. So you are the judge, and I am also a judge. So you and me, we are on the judging bench, on the panel, judging panel or judges panel, and there are people that are contesting. Now, who is number one? Who is number two? Is the question here. Okay. So now I give number one to someone, and you give number to some other one. That happens in judgment of this. When that happens that way, why is it happening? Because the reason why I gave number 1 to that particular dancer is because she was my student. So I know her before. That is what my objectivity is. And you gave number 1 to another dancer. The reason is because she is your cousin's sister. That is your objectivity. So you want your sister to win, and I wanted my student to win here. This is what we call the objectivity. So now this judgment is not happening independently. I have some influence here to make a decision on the winner, and that is favoring my student. And you have certain influence in your judgment, which is towards your cousin sister. That is your objective. So now if you have these kind of things in your research collection, data collection, and you are in fact manipulating your result. So it is not the right way to do your research. It has to be an independent research. You should not influence. You are only a vehicle, and the research will happen automatically. That is when you can get out from from a good result out of this. Now let me tell you this using an example as well. Let's say if you are testing one medicine, for a purpose, now you have elderly people and youngsters as well. So if you want to establish the impact of this medicine, if you consume this for a disease, you have to include the sample, a mixture of elderly people and the youngsters as well. Based on that only you can say this is overall okay. Otherwise you can say for youngsters that's okay, for elders not okay, something like that. Otherwise, if you want to sell this medicine, you want to get the yes result from your research. Now, let's say I am the company owner, pharmaceutical company, and I developed this medicine and I want to sell this. So I want to establish to the market that this medicine is a safe one that can cure you from this disease. So purposely pick the sample from the young population. That is where we are calling manipulation, where my objective is to conclude the research. This is a good medicine, but the reality may be different because these elderly people have been neglected. There are 1 or 2 persons you have included to show that they are also part of this research, but it may be not real. So in that case, what happens is your objective is to get a result, manipulate a result. So this research is again not valid. Okay, so we should be you just let the research happen itself. You make your questionnaire valid, reliable, and let it collect the data as it is. You don't influence anything. You don't have any favorism on this. Let it happen automatically, independently. Then collect the data, analyze them, and the result will be better. Okay, so this is what your objectivity is about. So your research is in fact subject to reliability, objectivity, and the validity test. Meantime, the generalizability as well. So when I in fact explained this to you with the initial thing, generalizability is about when you do your research, it is impossible for you to study every single person, every single unit, every single car, every single drop of curry for studies. So what you do, you pick some of them as the sample, and after you study the sample, what you get out of that statistics is what we're going to use to say that the rest of the population is going to have the same trend as of this. That is what generalizability is about, same trend. So if you drink 1 drop of curry from your pot, then you're going to conclude this, the rest of the curry in the pot is going to have the same composition, same taste, same salt level, same spicy level, whatever. This is what generalizability is about. So now if you have a bigger curry pot, and if you drink 1 drop of that one, and if you can generalize that message to the rest of the curry pot, it is better one. And if you can generalize that to a curry next to that as well, it is even better. But I don't think you can do it, because if you made 1,000 BMW cars, and to make sure the safety features of the cars are working, what you do, you pick 1 or 2 or 5, 10 cars and you crash them purposely and check all the safety features. If all of them are working, you can say the rest of the 910 cars or 990 cars will be the same case. So that is it. So you generalize that 10 cars story to the rest of the cars parked in the yard. That is how. Now, this message can be generalized to those BMW cars, but it cannot be generalized to some other cars from the Toyota car yard. It is not possible. But if we can do that, it is the best result. It is the best research, but it is not right to generalize that BMW's features to make sure that this Toyota is, because it is two different brand, two different features in both cars, and built in 2 different nations, 2 different technologies, 2 different factories, and so on. But in human thing, let's say if you do some cream in your face, and if you do a test in some country, if you can say this cream is making you fairer, and if you bring that to one of the countries in Asia, and you can say this is the same case. If you apply this, we applied this in Britain. If you bring it to Sri Lanka, you'll be the same color as of the Britons. So this is what it is. So if we can generalize it, it's a better one. So the bigger the generalization, it is better. Okay, the bigger the area you can cover out of this is better. So when you want to read a research, you always look into all these things. Number 1, reliability. Number 2, validity. Number 3, objectivity. And finally, the generalizability tests positively. That research is a good research, and it is worth it to read that. It is worth it to apply it for yourself, and it is worth it to generalize that for your context as well. A final example, if a research is done for some employee turnover in an organization, and if you do these tests, reliability, validity, generalizability, objectivity, and if it is yes to you, then you can read that and you can use that research to solve an employee turnover problem in your organization as well, because you can generalize that treatment to you. That is what this is about. So that is it from me tonight on this reliability, validity, objectivity, and generalizability. And I see you in the next class. Have a good day. Thank you very much. Very good night.